everyone. Welcome to this live session on our YouTube channel, AxelTech YouTube channel. And I'm Marco Branzanti. Here in Bologna, I have with me Gianluca Righi, which is on the video mixer, and Stefano Grego, which will actually accept your questions. In order to submit a question, just use the top right-hand corner. There's a bell icon on the top right-hand corner of the web browser. Use that to post your questions, and we'll answer live. Stefano will prompt them to my video prompter. Today, we're going to talk about two exciting products. The first one is DLG Plus, which is our digital logo generator plus, and the second one will be our MultiCrossConverter. The DLG Plus actually was born as a channel branding solution, and then we added so many features to the channel branding that that's the plus option, that it has become a very, very nice character generator. So let's see the GUI right away. The DLG Plus is installed on a Windows 10 machine here, and I have a video card, which is the Blackmagic video card. In this case, it's a Decklink Duo. It's important when you choose a video card, and you can choose among Asia, Bluefish, DeckTech, Magwell, Streamlabs. When you choose the video card, you must choose a video card that's capable of doing internal and external keying. And this is quite important for a CG product. In fact, if I show you the setup of the DLG, as you see, I have the possibility of choosing the two types of keying. Internal keying is when the keying is done directly by the card. You feed to the card a video input, and on the output you will find the same video input plus the graphics overlaid. This is not very nice in the sense that if you turn off the computer or you shut down the software, you'll get actually black on the output. There's no video bypass on the card. So it's always preferable to use an external DSK, the downstream keyer. And so in external key mode, you'll get two outputs. One is the SDI and the other is the key SDI, so the fill and the key. In this case, let me pull up a player so I have a background. I have an ATEM video switcher which is doing this for me, and as you see on the DSK, I have enabled the downstream keyer effect to overlay the graphics directly over the background video. So I'm going to generate a background video with my Uplay production player. I'll go back to my DLG on the main GUI, and I'm going to put a logo on there, and here you have it, okay? So one of the nicest features of the DLG Plus is the GUI. Usually when you use for the first time a CG product, it's every CG product is kind of a little different, so it has its own GUI, which is very specific and particular to the product. So we wanted to create a GUI which was as most familiar as possible to a video technician. So we designed the GUI as a video mixer. So as you see, I have a preview window, I have a program window, which is typical of a multi-viewer on a video mixer, and I have two bars. The first one on the bottom is called the preview bar, and the second one is the program bar. And if I show you the GUI of my Blackmagic ATEM mixer, as you see, it's quite similar. So I have a program bar on the top and a preview bar on the bottom, and of course I have my auto take button to actually take the effect eventually, okay? So the same here. So if I press a button on the preview bar, I'll actually get my CG graphics related to that button directly on the preview bar. And if I press the take button, this will actually move to the program bar and actually go on air. So essentially, if you know how to use a video mixer, you already know how to use our DLG Plus product. Okay, now let's have a look at capabilities. What can we do? Well, of course, you've already seen that I have some animated logos on air. I can actually see another page which has a clock on the bottom, okay, so we can generate also clock. And then we'll go with something more complex like this. This could be a template which could be in use by a music channel. So you have, you know, some crawls on the bottom just talking about music business and some tickers. Okay, the crawls are text which continuously scroll horizontally. Can be left to right or right to left according to the language. By the way, the DLG Plus is Unicode, so it works in any language. Arabic, Thai, also double byte, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, so no problem there. While a ticker, I was saying, is something which comes into the screen, displays for a few seconds, and then moves on with the next item. So, for example, on the right-hand part, I have some tickers showing the top hits of the moment with some images, which are actually animations. As you see, fonts and text with different fonts and different text. On the top right, I have a nice animation with alpha channel. Alpha channel means it has transparency. We're going to talk about that. So what else? Well, let's see, a sports templates. So we have sports news on the bottom, some scores on the top. Just to notice, actually, the small flags which are on the top right corner, you see a glare coming in sometimes. That's an animation. And that's something you want to look for into a system. Usually only high-end CG products allow you to embed animations into tickers and crawls. Let's go on. Let's see some news. So this is 3 crawls on the bottom with your news, your traffic, and your weather. Stocks. This is kind of interesting. Stocks, well, usually the data which is actually displayed is taken from a data source. It's not input manually. In this case, the data source is actually a spreadsheet, an XLSX file, which is a modern Excel file. And the interesting thing is we can take advantage also of the formulas inside the Excel file. So there's a formula which says that if the number is negative, show the bitmap, and in the bitmap it's a red arrow. If the value is positive, show me the green arrow. And all this is managed directly by the formula. Let's go on. Live news. Also interesting, crawl on the top and on the bottom, some tickers on the right side. Notice on the bottom that between the news there's a small world which is actually, it's an animation. So again, animation inside the crawls. And then I'm going to go on with shopping TV. So also this data is coming in from a spreadsheet. So if you have like, the spreadsheet is interesting because it's an interface with third-party systems. So if you have your computer software which is managing, you know, how much articles you have left, how much you're selling and so forth, if the system is able to export into a spreadsheet, then we can pick up that data and just display it on the fly. And then News Now. This is a very typical, there's a national broadcaster in the US which has a template on air which is very similar to this with animations and so forth. So, of course, you have all these pages, 10 pages at a time. Up on the top part, I have tabs. So I actually can select the group of 10 pages that I want to use up to 99 pages. So in one project, I can put 99 pages. Pages for us are actually CG templates, which can be multiple layer. So in each template, I can fit in as many layers as I want. And so, and then you can have 100 pages for every project. Of course, you can load your project, save your project, name your project, etc. One thing regarding on the number of layers, there's actually no limitation on the number of layers you can put on a page. What we use the CPU, and you have a score meter on the top right, which is telling you a relationship between how much CPU you are using and if the correct frame per seconds are actually rendered on the output. For an HD system, I would say that an i7 CPU is good enough. For a 4K system, I would go with i9 CPU. One thing regarding the preview and the program both go out on the SDI outputs of the cards, so this is kind of nice because you can have a preview with full quality and you can take advantage of the SDI output. But the DLG Plus can also be multi-channel. So this means that you can use the two outputs as two independent video channels for CG. And in high-end live production, this is kind of typical. Why? Well, simply because, for example, on your 8M video mixer, you see you already have two DSKs. So maybe you can use one DSK and you can record that live program with that channel because maybe the graphics is related to the production, and then you can use the second DSK just for the live purposes, and maybe you won't record that, so you use the clean feed on DSK1, and that is why most of the time you want to have independent channel output. Of course, you can use the multiple channel. If you're using the DLG as a channel branding solution, you can use the multiple channels, each one for your TV program output, channel 1, channel 2, and channel 3, and so forth. For the multiple channel, there's a specific GUI which allows you to manage all the channels in a single GUI. And you can also link channels between each other. So when I press page 1 on channel 1, that will trigger page 1 on the other channels as well. I have an application for this. I have a TV station which goes on there with multiple languages, and each channel has, of course, titling in its specific language. So they prepare and kind of link together the numbers of the pages with the same type of content, but translated in each language. So controlling just one channel will actually enable to control the CG on all the other channels/languages. Okay, very good. So let's go on with the main GUI, which is this one. And I want to notice one thing, which is kind of interesting. When I put on here a template, this section of the GUI is called single page selection. So when I actually put on here a page and I switch to another page, that page will actually go on here and the content will change. Of course, if they are common elements on the two pages, which I'm switching to and from, these will stay on the screen. So there's kind of a smart comparison between the two pages. And I'll try to show you. So if I go from stocks to news, as you see, both pages contain the two central bitmaps with DLG Plus and CG Live. So when I switch between the two pages, those bitmaps will not fade out and fade in. We call that effect the ping pong effect. We don't want to see the ping pong effect. So this already tells you that you can combine your objects in several ways, maintaining some common objects, and you can switch from one page to the other, and that's the way you can leave the common objects directly on the page. There is another way, though, and here we go to the other section of the software, which is called the multi-page selection. Well, the multi-page selection is something like on our 8M mixer, the DSK part. So normally in a video mixer, when you switch on your program bar, you'll switch from one camera to the other. But if you want to add content on top of that camera, you will use your downstream or upstream keys. So this section over here. So actually the right section in the video mixer is to add content. And we tried to kind of, use the same logics to it. So if I press the letter A, let me go to a more simple template, this one over here. If I press the letter A, actually I'll get on the top right-hand corner an animation with the time. But I can press simultaneously the letter B, and as you see, I have two letters on there at the same time. So it's different from the single page selection, which is mutually exclusive. This is mutually non-exclusive. I can put as many letters on here as I want, and each letter can have multiple layers, of course. So as you see, I can put on here C, which is my top left corner, put my letter D, which is my bottom right corner. So, and I can individually choose whatever I want. Of course, in this case, I don't have a smart comparison because each layer is independent and you kind of have to worry about not overlaying graphics on top of each other, which do not fit very well, which are not very nice. But this method actually, let's say, gives value to the preview and program plane. Why? Because sometimes the combination can become complex. So there's actually no issue. So if I put the same background over there and I just select, for example, letter A and letter B, when I press the take program, letter D will go away. And if I choose a different combination, simply, the system will actually show me in the preview exactly what I will get, and when I press the take program, that is exactly what will go on air. So preview and program with this type of philosophy allows you a lot of control over what really goes on here. Let's have some Q&As. So remember, use the bell icon on the top right corner of your web browser. With that, you can enter the chat in YouTube. Stefano Gregor is actually reading and prompting them to me. Can we use Autodata spreadsheet? I think so. I'm not really familiar what Autodata means, but you can use spreadsheets and formulas inside the spreadsheets, and you can actually choose or the entire sheet to display, and the system will just know which cells are full or empty, or you can use a selection of sheets, of cells, sorry. The interesting thing about Excel integration is the following. Let me show you. So if I go to a page which I know has a spreadsheet data source, I'll select the data source and I press the open icon, and the system will automatically launch LibreOffice. LibreOffice is just a free version of an Office compatible, Microsoft Office compatible program, so it does open XLSX files and it can also save them. And as you see, in the file, I just have cells with text in them and also references to images. That's how we embed these are file names with animations. It's actually a GIF file, GIF. So that's how we embed animation inside tickers and crawls. Not only, very interesting, when you're using Excel spreadsheet files, we actually import the font, so you can change font in each cell and it will be displayed with the correct font, but not only, background color, foreground color, and alignment as well. So the Excel is a great way to actually add rich text format, which you won't find in a notepad or a simple TXT file, even if we can also link TXT and comma-separated value files. But for sure, the best option is to use an Excel file because it gives you much more options, let's say. How can I manage schedule events? Okay, let's skip a little forward. We have an internal scheduler, which is kind of interesting because you can actually schedule events according to date and according to time. Not only you select your page that you want to do, and what you can do is you select also recurrent events. So you can say every 2 hours, every 1 hour, every 2 days, and so forth. Create your schedule, and the system will automatically turn on and turn off layers for you according to the schedule. There's also a playlist option, and the playlist allows you to select pages and actually select a duration and create a playlist of pages that will be played sequentially or in loop mode. Do remember that the DLG also has many ways to be controlled by external devices. So there's a REST API, which is very interesting. I have a customer which just created some Chrome links, Explorer links for each operation that he wants to do, and he just double clicks on the link and he sends the command to a machine which is actually in another city. so he has the ports rerouted, etc., and that's one way. There's actually also a TCP/IP protocol, which is used by automation system, or you can actually use also GPI events. So we have a specific section which is called shortcuts, and in that section you can actually define for each page on the in the system a combination on the keyboard. So I can, for example, define a Control-8 for the U logo, which is page 2. So whenever I press Control-8, the system will actually go on air. So this is a way to program a hotshot keyboard. So you can buy actually an extra keyboard or a numeric pad keyboard or any type of keyboard in which you can assign special keystrokes and then assign the keystrokes directly inside the software. There's not only one button take on air events, you can actually define events for previewing and then take. So you can define special buttons which actually emulate the take button or the preview button or the blank page button or the clear button on the multi-page. So you can actually map your own keyboard. Or what you can do is we interface very well with what is called an Ovation Launchpad. It's a type of keyboard, USB keyboard, which is used a lot in the music industry. They make several models, a small one, a large one. It's nice because it has backlit buttons, and you can assign DLG Plus function directly to each button, and the button will light up and kind of be responsive a little bit in order to manage it. So that's kind of typical in CG situation, a dedicated keyboard on the side to use as a shot box for fast CG events, let's say. So I didn't tell you this, but of course we support Blackmagic cards, as I said, but also NDI. So the system can also use NDI, which is a video over IP format by NewTek, and what it will do, it will send via the LAN card an NDI video stream, which does contain fill-in key information. So it's a video with alpha. Then, of course, you can use vMix, a TriCaster, or other compatible, let's say, equipment, and you can display that video directly, that CG directly on air. So if you do want some rolls, crawls, tickers, which kind of advanced graphics with which most PC-based video mixer do not manage, this is a really cool add-on for your TriCaster or your vMix machine. Okay, so let's talk about the built-in page editor. So what we've seen until now is actually the main page, which allows you to control your DLG Plus. But all your pages can be actually built in directly into in the software. And what it allows you to do is allows you to compose your pages using several, let's say, object types. So of course you can put a text, you can put some media. We have a slideshow object. This is kind of cool. So it allows you to do sequence of images. A lot of people use that for advertisement banners, okay? So you can define a section, then you put your list of all your sponsors, and simply the system will do transition between them and do a slideshow. Background object, crawl, rolls, and tickers. Of course, we've seen that. That's one of the most used object types just because it's becoming very popular. We have a shape. We have a clock, which is kind of nice. But also we have a sports clock. What's that? That's kind of interesting. Well, a clock, when it will count hours, minutes, and seconds. Most of the time in a sports clocks, it will just count like minutes and seconds. So like a soccer match will go 59 minutes, 60 minutes, 61 minutes. So in that case, the formatting of the clock is different from a normal, let's say, time and date formatting. Then I have a date timer. This is kind of new. We did it for elections in a country. They wanted a text which would display a countdown to a specific date and time, and that's kind of new. And then we have a table. The table is kind of interesting. It allows you to use a spreadsheet and actually format the spreadsheet using column width. And what the system will do is respect that spacing between the columns and actually like make a snapshot of your Excel and put it directly on air. This is interesting, especially when you have to show on air a lot of data. So if you have to do each text object one by one, it becomes a time-consuming operation. So the table will just allow you to get the spreadsheet and actually display all the data all at once. So the combination of all these object types will actually give you what we call a page, so it's a graphic template that then you can later use. One nice thing, if you're using your preview, your 2 channels on your video board for, let's say, program 1 and program 2, in the DLG Plus Composer, you also have a VGA preview. So I'm not outputting anything to SDI, but I do have the possibility of getting a preview of my CG template to have a look of how it's going to look on air. One important thing, there's also a free software which is called the CG Composer. The CG Composer is essentially the page, it's essentially exactly the same as the built-in page creator object, but it's a standalone program. Why is it free? Well, usually the CG guys, graphic guys, they like to work at home on their own computer, maybe at night because they're more creative at that time. So we give them the possibility to install the software directly on your computer at home with no charge. They can create their templates, save them on a flash drive, and then come into the TV station the next day, just plug it in and put it on air. So that's a nice add-on to the system, the CG Composer. There's a nice, another nice, cute option for the system, and it's what we call the Social Hub. A Social Hub is actually an option. What it does, it allows you to connect to different social sources like Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, and others. Let's see the list so I can tell you something about it. Social sources, and here we have it. So Facebook, Flickr, SMS, OpenWeatherMap, RSS, Skype, Twitter, WhatsApp. And what it allows you to do is recollect text messages from your viewers at home, and you can eventually edit these text messages in order to censor them if necessary, and then simply send them to your DLG. What the DLG will do is, if there is a page which has as a data source the social hub, let's say social source, it will display these messages directly on air as a ticker or as a crawl. So it's kind of nice. This tool is usually used during live shows, and in order to get a more, let's say, a connection with viewers at home. So while you are airing live, you can, you know, get opinions, get comments, and so forth, and show these comments directly through with the DLG Plus. So it's really nice option. Very well. So we're almost halftime. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass to the next product, which is the MultiCrossConverter. But if you do have any questions regarding the DLG Plus, oh yeah, I have a question, and it's actually it was a question which was asked in the previous session. So I just want to specify. A lot of people ask me which are the compatible formats to use into the DLG as far as animations is concerned. Of course, this is a very important subject. Why? Because you are going to maybe render animation in After Effects or with other softwares, and the nice thing is that the DLG Plus can easily put them on air. So the best formats that you can use, in my opinion, is a format called QuickTime Animation. It's an MOV, so it's a QuickTime, and inside the codec is called Anim Plus, which the plus means actually that it also has alpha channel inside. So you get millions of colors and 8-bit for transparency, so you get all those levels of alpha channel transparency inside in a single file, and that's not bad. And luckily, industry has focused a lot on distribution codecs like H.264, H.265, or AV1, which do not support alpha channel. So we are kind of stuck with old formats. Of course, what we also support is GIF. GIF only has a limited number of colors. It only has 1 bit for transparency. It's not good to use it as a big object, but for example, in the crawl that I have on there right now, that little world is actually a GIF. And the nice thing about GIFs is that you can find a lot of them online. You just put your search in Google GIF and you can get an arrow or whatever you need. And these are good to use in tickers and crawls since usually they are quite small. Another format which can be used, of course, is sequence of bitmaps. So we support any format of bitmap, any format of video. If it has alpha channel, it will go on air. As far as bitmaps are concerned, usually very classically, Targa files are used in video, TGA files. But now, a more modern format, which I prefer, is probably the PNG. PNG 32-bit, almost any software nowadays can manage it, and a sequence of PNG will actually go on air. One recommendation, when you do use an animation, and maybe the animation is small in a corner, do not render it out to full resolution, like 1920 times 1080. So there's a lot of blank transparency. Why? When you are adding objects, yes, there's no limitation in the layers. But if you put multiple layers on top on the other, the system has to calculate the alpha transparency for each single bit, so this will load the CPU. So if you want to keep your CPU load low, simply render to the right size to contain your animation, and then position that animation on the screen. This is a tip I usually give to all people who use the system. Another animation format which we can use is SWF, which is called Flash Animation, and luckily there's many years that Flash has declared that it will abandon the format, will go in end of life. This has not happened yet, but I expect sooner or later. I love that format. Why? Because millions of colors, alpha or single file, but also vectorial. So if I had a font embedded inside with a text, I could scale it and I wouldn't see any degradation because it's vectorial. And it also has dynamic text. So the ability to change the text from the DLG GUI, which is actually inside the SWF file. Well, until they work, we're going to use them and we're compatible. And the last format I want to mention is actually the ProRes 4444, which is kind of relatively modern. The last 4 is actually the channel which gives us the alpha channel, but it is very, very heavy. So you will need, let's say, a fast disk and a fast CPU in order to manage that type of format. Very good. So let's pass to the next software, which I'd like to show you, which is called the MultiCrossConverter. If you do have questions regarding the DLG, use the bell icon on the top right, and just type in your question. So, MultiCrossConverter. Just to tell you what type of product we are talking about. It does not fall in a specific category like a playout or a capture or a titling machine. It's actually what we call a glue. In your technical room, I'm sure you have a lot of signals going around, audio and video, some SDI, some HDMI, some analog, some digital, and so forth. And usually you have devices, and in order to interface and connect these devices between each other, usually we have small boxes, conversion boxes, from SDI to HDMI, SDI embedder or SDID embedder, and so forth. All these devices are typically referred as glue in order to interconnect different types of devices. Well, the MultiCrossConverter wants to be a software product, a glue software product, which is very good to manage signal types, signal formats, which are typical of the computer world, like IP signals, rather than, let's say, physical signals like SDI and so forth. So the MultiCrossConverter actually is a software which runs on Windows 10. You can install video cards inside, and the GUI is actually like a multi-viewer. So you can configure the number of channels that you want. So I'm going to go with a 6-channel configuration, and here I'm reconfiguring. And each channel actually represents a conversion. So a conversion is usually done by a source, then you can apply some modifications to that source, and then you decide which output, which type of output or outputs that you want. So let's have a look at the source. So of course I have an internal bars generator, and that's just for test purposes. Or you can have as a source an audio-video device, a Blackmagic card, for example. Inside the system I have a 4-channel Blackmagic card with 4 connectors. Each connector is an SDI connector and can be or an input or an output. In this case I have a source. I can assign the source to exactly a SDI card inside, okay? In this case actually I'm getting the source from a file. So it will be looped. In this case, I have a water polo file. Why? Well, this file is particularly good to stress the codecs and to test system, since the reflection in the swimming pool actually is hard on any codec, and we've learned this through experience. So that's why I have this file here playing right now. Of course, the input can be an IP. So IP inputs can be of various formats, from RTMP, RTSP, RTP, HTTP. There are a lot of formats. Also SRT. As the rule, generally speaking, is if VLC can view the file, and VLC is very popular because it's quite agnostic regarding file formats or streaming formats and codecs, we can do that too. And that's because we share the same multimedia engine, and the background it's FFmpeg based. Okay, so IP will allow you to decode any IP stream coming out from the LAN or from internet. Then of course I have NDI, so I can receive an NDI signal which is on my LAN coming from a TriCaster. There are cameras now that directly output NDI in several appliances. I can choose that. And the last one is WebRTC. WebRTC is a Google technology. Technology, and I was telling you that it's very used in let's say, bidirectional voice communication. I think it's the same technology that Google uses in their software Hangout or Meet, okay? And the nice thing is, well, they use it for video conferencing purposes, but we actually are able to embed high-quality video and high-quality audio inside, take advantage of that transport, and since it has a very, very low delay. So, what else? Okay, so in this case, I have a file. What I can do to the file, I can apply a conversion, so I can do up conversion, down conversion. I can also crop, switch, interlacing, so I can do a top field dominance, a bottom field dominance, etc. And then I need to choose how to output. So in this case, my first window, just to show you what I'm doing, actually I'm getting a file and I'm outputting directly to an audio-video device on SDI. So I'm choosing the second channel of my Blackmagic card. Okay, then, oh, I need to reset this. Sorry, when I go into that setting, actually the card, the driver goes down, but it's nothing that I cannot solve. Here we have it. Okay, so then what I'm doing is I'm outputting, I was telling you, to the audio video device. Then I have a loop connector, which is actually inputting into a Blackmagic card. So the second one actually has an SDI output, and then what I'm doing, I'm sending the signal on WebRTC. So actually the compression, I think here, which I decided is a NVIDIA GPU in H.264. So what I'm doing is I'm compressing using the GPU rather than the CPU, which is always a nice option. If you have a GTX card, you can do 2 streamings of compression in GPU. If you have a NVIDIA Quadro card, it's not limited. So for multiple channel system, we put a Quadro card inside. And now there's a new option. We can also use GPU from AMD cards. Kind of experimental, kind of new, but that also works. I have users which are actually viewing that. So I see I have a question, but it's kind of, let me see. I have a question that you answered before, but didn't work for us, is how to hide all graphics for a certain clip and let only one page appearing live. We followed your step, but didn't work. I think this is for the play out, maybe, for a clip. Oh, well, maybe maybe Stefano can figure that out and make it a little more understandable. Thank you, Stefano. So let me go on. So at the end, another important thing, we can use other codecs. VP8 and VP9 are Google codecs. VP8, they say, is kind of equivalent to an H.264. VP9 is equivalent, they say, to an H.265. So you can get better quality than H.264 out of this format. But the very interesting thing, and you see it on the third pane, is that I'm receiving that stream. And if you look at the delay between what I'm sending and what I'm receiving, the delay is very, very low. Of course, I'm on the same machine here. And if I can do the same in 2 different geographical locations, very apart from each other, connected to the internet, and I would have to add the delay between the 2 connections, which is actually the sum of the ping, which is milliseconds. So at the end, I'm saying that between SDI to SDI connector, we can be more or less around 200 milliseconds delay, which is a very, very good figure in the video realm, okay? So this is also can be an alternative to backpack systems based on GSM. Of course, it's not multi-SIM, but nowadays with 4G connection, with 5G connection, you require maybe a 1 megabit, 2 megabit, or 3 megabit upload. And the nice thing that also the technology is bandwidth adaptive. So if by any chance your bandwidth goes down, the system will adapt to that, and maybe you will get a little less quality, but when the bandwidth goes up again, it will return to normal. So very interesting. And just to show you, I do have a very nice application. I have a customer of mine which actually has a machine. Let me connect to them. And they have one MultiCrossConverter in Paris, another MultiCrossConverter in Moldova, and they have cameras in Moldova in the radio studio. What they're doing is they're picking up the cameras, they're embedding the microphones of the radio studio together with the SDI, and then they're sending those signals, the 4 cameras now, to the video mixer, which is in Paris. They're mixing it up, going streaming. That's their main production facility. And then what they're doing on 2 other channels, they're sending back. Yes, the MultiCrossConverter is bidirectional. And they're sending back the program output of the video mixer, the multi-viewer of the video mixer. And then in Moldova, in the remote studio, they're showing those 2 on 2 big monitors. So as you see, and the software is used for a 24/7 high quality, low delay, bidirectional connection between Paris and Moldova. The other thing, the other very interesting thing is that the system does not require you to configure your routers. This is typical of a WebRTC protocol communication, so you don't have to open any specific ports. This is in 90% of cases, let's say. I'm going to go a little bit technical. The NAT with internet has to be symmetrical, so if your router does respect that rule, it will work. In some cases, it doesn't, just because there are routers which are not symmetrical between you and the internet, and in that case, a good solution is simply a VPN with your headquarters. So you just set up a VPN in your router, and then it's like you're on a local LAN, and the delay will stay low, and the quality will also stay the same. So that's a solution. One new feature which are going to be built in, and we're going to talk about, we're going to develop directly into the product, is SRT output. So I already have it here. Let me disconnect from this one. Okay, no cancel, just close one connection. Here we are. So if I want to go IP, I would go into the settings configuration, and I would tell the system, as you see, we have a lot of different formats. RTMP, this is usually used to go to YouTube, to go to Facebook, or your web page for your radio or TV station. UDP streaming, this is a type of streaming, also called transport stream over IP, which allows you to, let's say, send your IP, but on the same LAN. It's not made to go on internet. And it's usually used in digital TV head-end system in order to send video from your encoders to your multiplexers and so forth, so you can actually go directly to your multiplexer with this. Also, the other one, the DVB compatible streaming, is actually a UDP format, which has a better compatibility with certain multiplexers. UDP over internet is not good. Why? Simply because in internet, the UDP sends the packets, but doesn't actually verify if those packets are being received. So UDP can lose packets, and that's why every once in a while you see these blocks, you see these decoding errors in UDP, and that's why you can't use it. So the only solution, a nice solution to use, is SRT. The nice thing about SRT, that it is very low delay like UDP. It is UDP based, but it has mechanism in order to correct those errors, so it has a form of correction error procedure. So this allows you to broadcast with low delay, high quality over the internet, and it's becoming very, very stylish. A lot of devices are coming out. Panasonic, I think, is coming out with some cameras which have the SRT format directly built in. A nice thing about SRT is not only can you embed H.264 inside, but you can actually put H.265 inside that format. So that's kind of interesting. So SRT, we're developing it probably next week. It will be built in, and you'll able to do your streaming also in that format. Of course, there are other formats which are RTP, RTP Pro MPEG, RTSP, IIS, and Apple TV, RTMP, Apple HTTP is actually called sometimes HLS, I think, and Windows Media Streaming. So there's a lot of that inside there. Of course, you can choose your codecs. Codecs are Cisco OpenH.264, that's like a software codec. I use that a lot because it's very light on your CPU. And I have Intel GPU accelerated. These are not so good, actually. I prefer installing into the system an NVIDIA card and using NVENG technology, which is GPU assisted, so NVIDIA GTX or Quadro. Okay, now I understand. They have an issue with the XTV system. When we have a layout live, but when we play a given clip with XTV, we want to switch off the graphic and display one related to the clip. Well, this is particularly related to the XPlay out. Maybe we can do a session for that when we talk about the XPlay out, or we can contact the customer directly and give them some explanation. But XTV essentially sends commands to the DLG through the TCP/IP protocol, which is built inside. And in the playout system, you can decide whether to do the graphics inside or do the graphics outside. So, but it is part of the DLG protocol, which accepts the communication with the playout system. Very good. So there's no more questions. I think we've talked about the products enough. We're almost in time. So I would thank you all for attending this live streaming session here in AxelTech. Thank you to Gianluca Righi, which is our video director. Thanks to Stefano Grego, which is our coordinator in Rome. Thank you for viewing. And I'm Marco Branzanti from AxelTech. See you next time.